Um, People like a friend of mine used to be the goaltending coach for the Dallas Stars, Mike Valley, and at one time, Kari Lettman was in net. There was a rookie on with two very senior National Hockey League forwards, and the rookie shot the puck, and usually they pass, but the reason why they shot is because two seniors told them to. So you start going into that, but you're never going to hear that. That's why Akari knew to come out of his net more, because he knew that the rookie is going to listen to the senior player and he's going to shoot the puck. Normally he would be more conservative. So I think what it comes down to with goaltenders is really having that plan and asking the right questions. So I kind of look at it this way when you're talking about confidence, and I'm a believer of, if you do the work in advance, you're going to have confidence and you'll be less nervous for the exam, which is the game or the practice or the tryout. So coming up with a simplistic way, which you'll get to in that book, which goes the A, B, C, D, and the 1, 2, 3 of goaltending positioning. And I made it really simple because in my first book, which is a lot thinner and very straight to the point, very similar to this one, it tells you what you're supposed to know in phase 1, what you're supposed to know in phase 2, and then what you need to know in phase 3. So I look at it as, the 4 skating movements is for basic goaltenders or shuffles, T-pushes, pivots, things like that. And then the basic save movements without a lot of movement. Phase 2, we get it.
I just want to interrupt you.
Yeah.
And this may happen tomorrow. I'm recording right now, just for practice.
Yeah.
But Yuri Kralik.
Yeah.
What are the 4 fundamental skills you mentioned?
Well, the shuffle.
Yeah.
The T-push.
Yeah.
The pivot.
Yeah.
Right. And the C-cut.
Okay. Well, Yuri Kralik did a demonstration. These were girls that were going to be on the national team, not right now, but in a year or two. And he came from behind the goal line close to the net with a puck and just could score on them.
Mm-hmm.
Then he went in the net and had our players. He took the stick, moved out, and shuffled. And I asked a former guy, you would probably know, working with the men's program on goaltending.
Yeah.
I call it the T shuffle or the shuffle. He hadn't heard of it at the time.
Yeah.
So here, this technique of shuffling, and that to me, well, it might be advanced to a lot of people coming out. And it's the idea of position, squareness, and letting the puck hit you. But go ahead with just continue.
So when you're dealing with, for example, the shuffles, now that can give birth to new skills, such as the reverse VH, the VH in certain situations. And the theory upon which I work on is 100% stop the first puck. So what's the positioning, the timing, the type of tactic or technique you need to stop it at 100%. And then your secondary, which is you have to control the rebound, is you got to have at least a 92 to 93% chance of stopping the second rebound, or the second shot. And you can apply, I mean, there's really only 4 different positions you can be in: a stance, a butterfly, a VH, and an RVH. So a lot of coaches say, I don't know goaltending, or, it's complicated. It's really quite simple. And that's what I hope to bring to the forefront to a lot of coaches when it comes to this. But in my first book, I talk about the total of skills, the total number of skills you need to refine before you go into phase 2 goaltending. Okay. And that is using your glove, your blocker, how to control rebounds, how to basic play the puck, and things like that. When you get into phase 2, you're talking about what are the most common 10 scoring situations that you're going to face. So, screens, deflections, breakaways, odd man rushes, low to high passes, east-west passes, below the goal line attacks, net drives. So when you break it down into a subject text like that, then you have the ability to say, okay, how am I going to play a right-handed player on the right side? How am I going to play a left-handed player on the right side? And you're able to build what I call a game plan, which I'll send you a copy of. It's an electronic PDF file. Don't print it off because it's got about 90 or 100 pages in it, but it just repeats itself so that the goaltenders will be able to look at the diagram and go, oh, I learned this today. This is what works for me. That is my game plan. Very similar to what a coach does in deciding how he or she would like to defend defend the net and how they'd like to penetrate the offensive zone. So I'll make sure to send that.
One question here.
Yeah.
The level of dialogue you're having with me. I'm working with U13. We've got U13, U15 goalies, U18 AA, U18 AAA. Like the conversation, I don't know. If we have goalie coaches, they may understand this more than I do.
Yeah.
But my thing about what's the right stuff at that age. And when you're done going through these, I'm going to bring up two examples related to goalies.
Yeah.
That were problems last year for us. And one of them related to behavioral coaching.
Yeah.
And the parents. And the other related to technical coaching and the timing of the butterfly. So
right.
Go ahead just continue with your third.
Yeah. So, I mean, especially even at that age, at the 13 to, unfortunately, we draft kids at 14 in Western Canada. I think they should wait, but they do. But at the age of 12, they've come out of that category where they should really have understood how to do a lot of those different techniques that I just talked about. But when we get into more advanced, we need to prepare them for higher levels, whether it be for women, of course, need to learn these things as well, because their life in hockey changes they become a 20-year-old at 18. So it's really important for us to make sure they get the appropriate knowledge. So we begin installing systems that consistently produce a result. So when plays are in the outside of the face-off dots and the tops of the circles, the goaltender could play at 100% of the crease or 125, depending on if it's an even or odd man situation. When they're in between the dots, above the hash mark and inside the dots, that I call action, reaction, and recovery. In that area, you're hovering around 75 crease, so you have the ability to get east-west sooner because the area that you move, if my heels of my hands are together, that's the net, and the outside is where I'm moving. I want to kind of be in this area where I can quickly switch positions, and then if I have to gain a little bit of depth, I can. Now
I want to interrupt you because my simple thinking, train of thought, what resonated with me is a different stance in terms of how far out the puck was.
Right.
And I wonder, there's basic stances for a goalie and the old Hockey Canada thing. I don't know whether it's upgraded or not, but I doubt that it's to the detail of this book.
No.
But for the sake of the audience and the right stuff, can you talk about the evolution of the teaching of the stance and your three stages?
Absolutely.
3 stances.
Yeah.
Because that to me is relevant. I've never heard it. I don't know if Marlene has heard it, and she's going to work with our association.
Right.
But is it too much for them? Because it relates to movement, being in a position to reduce the space that they've got to score on.
Absolutely. What we need to, like, the further out they are, the higher the puck can rise. So if we're in our aggressive stance, so think of Jonathan Quick being in a very low, wide stance, the puck could easily rise above his head and score. And if you look at Jonathan Quick when he was in Los Angeles, you'd see that the majority of goals on him were scored up high and not down low because he's much, much lower. In a stance such as Bobrovsky or other goaltenders in the National Hockey League that are tall goaltenders, when they're on the outside, they can stand square and they don't necessarily have to skate. They can step sideways very easily, and then they have the time to reduce themselves down into a butterfly situation and control the rebound because of time. The closer that they get, the lower the puck's trajectory. So now your head becomes the crossbar, your hands become the top of the net, and your feet end up becoming both posts. So what I'll do is I'll try to put together just a few slides that will be coach friendly, and it'll get us to get people asking some really good questions and how they can move through and utilize it.
See, if we had all goalie coaches on,
yeah,
I think it would be a great way to go, because the guys I know, one of the Halters, been a director with Hockey Minnesota for years.
Yeah.
And worked with USA Hockey.
Right.
Really knowledgeable, but he's a skating guy.
Right.
And the other one, Peter Whitney in Connecticut from the States, he's worked at a college level and coached high school hockey and junior hockey. He's retired now and mentoring coaches.
Right.
So, I'll direct the questioning a little bit towards where I think the group is at. What we've talked about now, like I could do a one-on-one with you, and
yeah.
I will. Like I'm going to edit parts of this.
Yeah.
That's sake, because
no problem.
But if Marlene was on and she had questions, we might do a later Skype with, like I've asked Sammy Joe Small to join us.
Yes.
Okay. Now you'll find this is an interesting social story. Back in the day when I was my first foray at female hockey was coaching the Oval team at the Olympic Oval in Calgary.
Right.
I took early retirement. Shannon Miller was the head coach, and the team was going to be centralized, and they needed me to look after her Oval team, which was, she recruited players that were going to be national team players.
Right.
And she phoned me, and I was running my conditioning camp with pros. And she said, Wally, I've got a goalie here. Like, we've got a camp we're trying to evaluate. But at our camp, there's not many good shooters, and she's really good. Can she come and can you put her in the net with your pros at night? And she's on a track and field scholarship at Stanford. It's Sammy Joe Small.
Yeah.
But she plays goal with the men's hockey team.
yeah.
And she's an athlete.
Yeah.
So I said, look, I'll talk to Warren and Clint and see if it's okay. And they said, no problem, because goalies just want shots, those guys.
Right.
You don't want 3 goalies on the ice at a practice.
Right.
I don't know what the trend is today, but those conditioning camps, I mean, they're taking too many shots. There's no degree of focus on the little details that they could be.
Right.
But anyway, she came. She was better than them. Like she stopped pucks.
It's not surprising. That trend is very live, whether it's Shannon Zabados or Emerence Mashmeyer or Genevieve Lacasse or any of the goaltenders on the national team currently could go in. And I had 2 young women, 13. They took the #1 jobs, both of them, away from the boys at the bantam level on the AAA team, and they were girls. Why? They're more mature. They listen. They understand what you want to teach them. They're hungry. Whereas a lot of guys, there's a lot of ice to break through and melt before the real player comes out and says, "Okay, what am I doing wrong?" Or, they're hard to admit it. Whereas women, I just found for 11, 12 years at UBC, they want to know. They want the edge. So I worked with you definitely would have heard of Danielle Dubé. Got her out of retirement after 10 years and played for UBC where we won our first championship. And she is, when you adopt the simple theories that are in that book and in building elite level goaltenders, those two books outline the process. It's very simple. Now, that being said, a person has to obviously collect it into their mind and put it to practice. Otherwise, just having the knowledge doesn't matter. It's really adopting and reading the play and understanding what is about to happen.
Let me talk to you about the evolution of the game.
Okay.
When I coached in 2002, first of all, in '98, the starting goalie, Manon Realm.
Yep.
And Leslie Redden was the backup.
Yep. Know them both, or no? I know Leslie, but I know of Manon Realm. Yeah.
Yeah, but the goaltending back in the day, it was fine. They finished. They won the silver.
Yeah.
But Leslie came back. She was going to hopefully be the next starter.
Yeah.
So she's playing on the oval team, but she's also practicing with Tom Rennie and the men's team, unbeknownst to me. And she got worse because the game was faster, the timing of the shots. And she got stop pucks there. When she came back to us, she played dodgeball.
Yeah.
She moved too much.
Right.
So I tried to talk her out of stop so that the game's slower. In fact, Mashmeyer back in the day was playing AAA boys and I talked to her parents and said, play girls hockey. It's not, boys is too good, too fast. Your timing doesn't work. But
Right.
here you are saying it today. U15 girls have taken, U15 girls have taken a double A job away from boys.
AAA jobs.
Yeah. But it's changed. Now, I think girls can play any level. But boys hockey today, it's pretty easy to defend boys hockey today because there's no deception. There's predictable shooting. It's 1-on-5 hockey. And,
Yes.
you really don't have to be a great goalie other than rebounds and in tight.
Right.
And scrambles. But
and you could see that as the Western Hockey League inherits some of these boys, and the scores are 11-1 and 9-2 and things like that. That happens because you move from kind of an unorganized type of hockey where one or two guys are really good on their own, and then you go into a system where guys are working together to force the goaltender to do what he or she has to do, and then take advantage of that. So that's why I was really attracted to what you said earlier. And I hold not a certification program, but I hold a camp in BC for BC hockey called Behind Enemy Lines. And it's a program where you go over the most common scoring situations where the player will come down and talk to the goaltenders about what they like to do and what the secrets are in reading them. And the goalie coach comes over and to the players and says, this is what a goaltender has to do. So we start getting into recognizing certain tendencies that you can expose during a hockey game. And it's really exciting. And a goaltender coach by the name of Dave Alexander, who was the goalie coach at the time the Blues went from his last place to Stanley Cup champions in 1 year, delivered a presentation to the Blues, which excited all of the players. The players were talking, I never thought of that. I never saw that before. And, I've done that down in the States where I've worked with some of the goaltenders and the female side as well. And, you have Hillary Knight come out and a few other players come out, and all of a sudden they go, I've never seen anything like this before. Like, no one's ever taught us, to look at what the goaltender is doing in order to expose them. So I always kind of look at goaltending as a combination lock. Once you've got the numbers, or once you've got that tendency recognition, the lock opens. And it's it's an unfortunate day for the goalie, but a great day for, someone like an Alex Ovechkin or whoever else is scoring.
Listen, I want to talk to you about reading your book and what Yuri Krolik did back in 2004 when he came over to do this clinic.
Okay.
And it relates to your book, but it's the idea of you play poker with the goalie. And his progression for direct attack on 2-on-1s, deliberate, is shoot for the rebound. So you go around the dots, one with a puck, one without, and the goalie gets conditioned. Okay? And then fake a shot pass. Or shoot for a rebound or shoot to score.
Right.
Fake a shot pass. Or fake a pass shoot. Deliberate practicing by forwards of that, so they play poker with the goalie. And his progression was 2-on-0 deliberate practice, rebounds, fake shot pass, fake pass shoot, and then double royal road, early pass, second pass. Those direct attack options, they're payoff options. I can't get the girls hockey Calgary U15s coaches to realize the value of that.
Right.
So it's something I'm trying to, I'm sort of giving up on it. That's why I'm staying with U13s.
Right.
But you're in your book. You mentioned the idea. Back in my day, it was they deliberately leave a space open for you to shoot at.
Right.
And you wrote about that in a pretty academic way. And it's not as obvious. It's a little more subtle, maybe. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, when you're in a position, we're in today's game where they've changed, the players are better conditioned, the equipment that they use is being advanced while goaltenders' equipment is being reduced in size. If you start playing the game of peekaboo or leaving the glove side open, they will gladly take it. And what the higher level that you go in hockey, the less readability of the shot off the stick, and it's lightning fast. So positioning trumps anything else. So like it reminds me of when I played my first game in the Western Hockey League before Billy Ranford was cut. I was playing in New Westminster, and I had something like 33 shots on goal, and I only allowed one goal. Everybody thought I was doing an amazing job. I got in the car with my late father, and he said, phenomenal game, excellent game. And I said, Dad, I didn't see over half of those shots. And what cleared in my mind for me was because I was in the right position. That's why pucks hit you. So in today's game, you can't give something because if you do, your chances of stopping that puck with deception or anything like that, you're going to get beat pretty bad. And now, especially with whether it be a stationary screen, a mobile screen, layered screen, these flyby screens also play a huge role. So I look at goaltenders now, like since Carey Price is gone, you look at goaltenders like Jeremy Swayman. They move less. They're in position more, and they occupy that net space. And if you go from, accepting the rush and then they cross the blue line and now they're on the half wall, the net size reduces to approximately 50% or less in size. So to your point, you're right on. You don't have to move very much. But if I played that peekaboo style game, left the short side open, and they shot it, I'd have to go after that, and it would be too late. because the distance on that short side is shorter, the speed is faster, and we may track this way. Everybody who drives tracks this way. We look over our shoulders, but nobody tracks downward.
No.
And that's the toughest part about goaltending, is tracking things through legs down into their pads. They may stop it, but they're not doing anything to control the rebound, which is really key critical.
Yep. Well, listen, I don't want to take too much time today because who knows where it's going to go tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about two things that maybe I'd like to get into tomorrow for the sake of our audience.
Okay.
Because these were living situations I faced mentoring U13 teams last year.
Okay.
There was one goalie on one different team, another one on another. And the first one I'll talk about relates more to the mental training, not goalie IQ, but it's ability to feel good and play well, control your emotions, refocus. Like an exercise I did many years ago, you may have heard of it, picked it up from a mental trainer with our Olympic team in 2002. And it's called a SUD scale.
Okay.
The Subjective Units of Distress Scale.
Okay.
And this is something I advocate for every athlete. But we had this one girl who, if she got scored on, that was it. And so I asked girls, what bothers you the most? What's your biggest distractor? So the first step of this exercise, and you can do it with any player, any goalie, any coach, is what bothers you the most when you played or when you coach? What's your trigger to lose your focus? And then the second thing is, what's your physical symptom? Are you a fist clencher, a head shaker, an exhaler, a frowner, drop the head? You have to know, but you have to write it down so you're aware of it. Then you have to turn it to a positive by having a conversation with a teammate or a coach, and then you come up with, once you've learned from it,
right,
digested it, you come up with your cue word. So when I saw this girl, and I was sitting with a parent of one was a parent on one team and the other was the parent of the goalie that had this problem, I talked to them about this exercise for the sake of everyone, like for all players. I'm saying every player needs to do it. You do it once, they begin to take control of their emotions so they can use their IQ.
right.
So when I brought it up with this, and this is the issue, U13, the goalie, I talked to the head coach. I said, after you get a goal scored on you, you usually like a player to go in, maybe say, look, if it's our fault or something, but I asked the goalie coach, says, no, she doesn't want to talk to anybody. But when she doesn't score, she's done. But did get a goal, when she gets scored on, she's done.
Yeah.
And her attitude and her body language was not good when she gets scored on. So I thought, if we can get her to have a strategy to cope with this, to develop a tool, a refocusing tool.
Right.
And I talked to both parents about it. And I think the one parent took it to heart and applied it. But this particular parent, the word got back to me at the end of the year. They said, I don't need a shrink. He doesn't need a shrink. So it was like, ooh. And so the parents and the goalie have been assessed as, okay, you don't want to pick them.
Right.
Game over. So what do you do? Have you ever encountered, or how do you deal with that distraction of getting scored on? I know they go for a skate, they blow on the water bottle, they tweak it in the air and watch the drops.
You have the answer already. You said it twice, and that is, you said to write it down. You have to recognize that this is an exercise that I would do with the goaltenders. I have National Hockey League goaltenders or national team goaltenders on video getting scored on. For example, I'll say, Wally, today our topic is going to be putting together a system where we're least affected by goals against or bad situations. So we need to always be at the top of our game, consistent, etc. We know the goal. So I'll put the athlete in front of the big screen, and then I'll shoot it up there on the screen where a goaltender will get scored on from 200 feet away. Once they do that, the fans go crazy. They zoom in on the goaltender. Then I stop it and say, what do? You got 5 seconds to get out of it. And it startles the crowd a bit that you're delivering it to, because now they go, ooh, I've never faced that situation before. You're going to. So what is the solution for you to get out of it? Number one, recognize that the puck went into the net. So what worked? What didn't work? What are you going to change? Flush it. So that's basically one of the things. I coulda, shoulda, woulda, wanted to do this. I didn't, because that didn't work. This is what I'm changing moving forward. Done. And get back to work again. And with body language, I do a talk on 7% of body language. 7% of communication is words, 38% is tonality, and 55% is body language. So when you go into the net and you sink down smaller and you sink back into the net and your head is down, or you do the fake F, bomb with your head, the message that you're sending physically to everybody else is defeat. So is that what you want to display? No. Okay, so now we've got what builds the goaltender to show confidence, respect that they scored on you, that you're not going to allow it to happen again because you've already reflected, found the solution, and you flushed it. And it's working through those exercises, whether it be playing the puck and missing the puck, or the situation that happened in Edmonton where the defenseman left the puck and scored on the Grant Fuhr in the Stanley Cup final where they lost. Those situations, how do you handle those? And that is bringing it to the forefront. Same thing with yourself, where you talked about, hey, I'm going to have a drill that's 2-on-0, and we're going to work through all of these things. We want to list all those things that are the nightmare of the goaltender and turn them into a positive. And really begin, they got scored on, I got to begin the process of getting through that and getting over it, because you can't pull it out of the net again.
Just for the sake of parents out there, that, the sports psychology, it's a shrink, it's sort of like, oh no. And they don't realize, really, it's the essence of ideal performance. Your emotions will affect how you play.
100%.
So until we can get parents to accept that, this is called elite hockey, U13, 15, 18, the best of the age group.
Right.
I'm thinking at this age, it's worth introducing, and it was with that particular goalie.
Right.
But if you see players who are demonstrating those distractive behaviors that are going to hurt the team and hurt their own performance, that's in the hands of, that's the responsibility of the coach to deal with. And we need the parents to appreciate there are tools available. So that's exercise is exactly what you talked about. We did it with the national team 3 weeks before we went to Salt Lake City. They sat on tables of 6 and they wrote down every possible scenario that could go wrong. Parent having a heart attack, a broken skate blade, bad refereeing. They listed 385 potential distractors. And then they talked about them. And the discussion of these desensitizes them. It's happened. you recognize it because we've identified the symptom individually. You know yourself. And when we got to Salt Lake City, that exercise played a role. We defeated. Had 8 penalties in the first period against the U.S.
Yeah.
But we had talked about the officiating, which we were prepared for because the biggest audience in the world, our players were even saying, "Are you okay? You're doing a good job." They didn't react to her.
Right.
And we ended up being up 1-0. Now, after the period was over, I deliberately walked by the room and stood by the dressing room door, and all I could hear was F-bombs about the referee. So I was going to walk in. I opened the door, and Dana Antel jumped on top of the bench, and she said, "Camp Engadine." Now, that was the cue word, not flush it, not bark it, not change the channel. Camp Engadine is the high elevation. 3 weeks before, we lived there to adapt to the high elevation. That location, that exercise was a cue word. And right away, I didn't go in. I went back, everything was fine. So because I've lived that, not only lived that, when I took this course back in the day of Wayne Halliwell was a sports psych guru with Hockey Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave King, when I worked with the national team, I was a skills coach, only because I played with Father Bauer's national team and I knew big ice.
Right.
So when I worked with Dave, he would send me to Theory 4 clinics that he was supposed to get so he could qualify to be an Olympic coach.
Yeah.
So I went and did most of them, summarized them, and talked to him about it.
Yeah.
But I took that one weekend, sports psychology for coaches, sports psychology for players. It was one day one thing, one day the other. And I applied it in my school setting. And I created Sports Psych 10, grade 11, and 12 with yoga, breathing, meditation, and this exercise in it. That year, I got asked, I was coaching my daughter's junior ringette team,
Yeah.
highest level in the city. And I got asked by the senior, we had 2 girls, twins, move out from Ontario, really good ringette players, that asked me if I would coach the senior team. And I did, because the season's long enough to do this exercise.
Right.
And I did it with everybody. Early
Right.
in the season, I knew everybody's distractor. They knew my distractor, what bothered me. And when they did it, they came up with their cue words. In the final game against Ontario, and I had only one Olympian from hockey, Judy Diddick, who played both sports.
Yeah.
We had 2 penalties with a minute left. And one of the girls went hysterical on the bench. And one of the other girls, "Joanne, for Christ's sake, your sud scale." And they all laughed.
Yeah.
But we ended up winning the gold medal.
But look at that. That she changed the state and turned something stressful into laughter, and laughter helps people relax.
Yeah.
And that's called brilliant. That's brilliance, right?
Yeah.
You know, we have 385 potential challenges, and we live that. So Graham must have learned that from you. But we talk, what could happen? You know, refereeing, the ice, they're unpredictable. The ice can be good, the ice can be bad. The refereeing can be good, refereeing can be bad, but you can't change either of them.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got to play within the system that you've been given, or the environment upon which you've been given, and find ways to do that. So that's exactly it, is bringing it to the forefront and having these taboo conversations about Well, what if something happens, you know? And I talk to players like that too when I do any counseling with players that play in the KHL or you know their wives in the NHL are upset because they're always on the road. You know, doing things like, well, you already know that there's going to be birthdays of your kids when you're on the road and you're probably going to miss them. You know, your wife, your anniversary, you're going to miss because it's in December. So, okay, how are you going to mitigate that so that when you and her call each other on a Friday and your game is Saturday night, that it's not about I miss you, when you're going to be home and all this other stuff. It's pre-planning something for her and the kids so that they can go out and have some fun, so that the topic of conversation was the great time that they had and good luck with your game tonight. So rather than going into the game of, oh, everybody wants me at home and I'm not home and I feel guilty, now I got to play a great game. So
that's proactive is the word.
Absolutely, being proactive of the situation and putting it at the forefront and facing those challenging situations. There's going to be roadblocks. Identify them, learn, put something in place on how you're going to mitigate them. And those women did an amazing job on both occasions, in the dressing room and on the bench.
Yeah.
So that's what I do with the goaltenders as well. It's silly to go through and start the season anticipating perfection. Everything's going to run smoothly. Everyone's going to remain healthy. No one's going to pass away. You know, all of these things. But kids are often faced with very difficult, trying situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I really haven't done anything in girls hockey Calgary yet, but I've sort of suggested I have a sheet called Feel Good, Play Well.
Mm-hmm.
Takes you through those stages.
You and I think the same way.
So I'm thinking I've shared it with the parents, and I've had emails back from parents that this is going to help me at work, help my daughter at school.
Yeah.
And so that in itself was a payoff.
Well, you can't do anything in life if you're upset well. You know, you can't kiss your wife well. You can't have good conversations if you're upset. So these are the things that we have to be mindful of, you know, and it makes a huge difference when you're aware of it. So awareness is definitely key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the other little example relates to not mental training as much as coaching. You know, you're trying to decide, how do you approach this? Well, I had these both parents there together. The other team was playing.
Yep.
And I said, they're elite goalies. And I'll talk about this tool. Now, the one goalie who was parent who was receptive, the problem was she went down on the butterfly and gave up a key goal.
Right.
But going down too soon was obvious to me as a mentor and obvious to the coach on the bench. And so that's where I talked about butterfly timing. And I'd rather they didn't butterfly in girls hockey. Like, I'd rather they stayed up. They've been taught the butterfly, let them stay up and not get into the details of distracted by too much thinking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's often a default, Wally, where you know, the stick comes down, cracks the puck, and on the crack they drop, but they haven't recognized the release. They don't know where the puck's going, if it's off the ice, if it's on the ice, if it's going to rise to the left or to the right. They haven't made that judgment call, so they're skipping spaces here. They're skipping steps, and when you skip steps or when you cheat, you always get caught. So it's really important to, you know, you've got to gather that information. Andrew Hammond is a client, you know, was a client of mine when he played, and mental training. He had a sports psych at Bowling Green, and he said, I pulled one thing out of it and I used it every game, and it was next shot, next save, next stop. And that's all he would say as a mantra in his head. Next shot. Where is that next shot coming from? Next save, next stop, next stoppage of play. You know, and these types of things become, you know, very important. And I derived that too from a Canucks bench one year. It was back in, I think, closer to 94. And in tape in front of the defenseman there were three words: ass, glass, and pass. My defenseman as a job, my job is to make the first strong pass. Oh my God, I'm in trouble. I'm going to throw it off the glass. And hey, that guy's coming down and he's barreling down. I'm going to nail his ass. And it just all it was that 3-word mantra that the defenseman, whenever they go out, grab a drink of water, that's sitting right in front of them. So it's then reducing the thinking process down to simplistic job assignment. And that too, like I always tell forwards, you gotta, you're thinking of 3 things. Number 1, where am I going to skate? Where am I going to pass? And where am I going to shoot? And if you think about those things, if I get that puck, I've got to support my players, but I got to get to that open pass. I've got to, this is where I'm going to shoot the puck. This is where I'm going to make the first good pass, things like that. So those are very, very important pieces to simplifying the game.
Well, look, I want to thank you. I've got hour and 2 minutes of recording here.
Okay.
Now, tomorrow, I'm not sure where it's going to go relative to the audience.
Okay.
But I might ask them for questions. Just listening to your response about the degree of thinking in terms of understanding the shot coming off the stick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking at the U15 level, they're not even thinking of that.
No.
At the U15 level, they should be.
They should be.
And I think those are and with Marlene on, we can talk about the kinds of things that goalie coaches are doing that coaches don't know about.
Absolutely.
So that's why your book is valuable. I sent a little promo email out.
Okay.
And I'm trying to get coaches to read it, not just goalie coaches.
Yeah.
But coaches. And it's not likely they would say, "Oh, I don't worry." It's too much. The goalie experts have taken that position and broken it down like none other in sport.
Right.
Like I've coached football, the difference between an O lineman and a D lineman and the skills and the simplistic execution on defense, you have to worry about nobody on the line, this hole and that hole. And I'm destroying the guy. So it's a narrow focus.
Right.
Now, the O linemen, they're going to have to change their blocking scheme based on an audible. Read the formation. There's a different mental set required. You need to fire it up, destroy D lineman versus the cerebral athletic O lineman.
Right.
So the idea of sports psych and different sports and the degree of excitement you need to play well, it's different for everybody.
Yes.
It's called the ideal performance state. And maybe we can talk about what's the best state for a goalie. And we can maybe talk about the Russian goalies, that the best goalies, and where their heads seem to be really in the right place to be playing their best.
Absolutely.
So that might be something to get into tomorrow. But anyway, I'm going to let you go, and I want to thank you. Have you got any copies of your book there?
I do. I do have some copies of the books. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying you can see the background here.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you can put a picture of a hockey jersey up, a goalie pad or something.
Yeah.
I'm just saying to decorate it up, because what I'll do at the end, even from today, I'm going to edit bits and pieces of this. And at a later day, we might do another one with Sammy Joe Small and Marlene only.
Sure.
And then we can edit it in the end, promoting the books.
Okay.
Like Sammy Joe's book is good. And the story about her that you don't know about, I liked her better than Kim St. Pierre because she stopped pucks.
Yep.
And Kim had a dad who was a goalie coach. She was technically quite good.
Yeah.
Very deliberate in her movement. But I looked at, I'm a hella kind of guy. He makes that third save and the fourth save. He's all over the place.
Right.
That's what Sammy Joe was.
Yeah.
She had no goalie instruction. She just was big and strong and athletic and never quit.
She competed.
Yeah. But
Yep.
when we played Finland to play the US in the final, we were down after the second period. And Kim was struggling. Like she was fighting the puck. And we won the game. And honest to God, I would have started. And I told the goalie coach and the head coaches, I would, you don't pull your best goalie at that level now.
Yeah.
That's the way Sammy fit into the role. And her book is the role I played.
Right.
But technically, I would have used her in the final game against the States.
Yep.
I just liked she stopped pucks. I didn't care how.
Yeah.
But she stopped pucks. And that's
Yep.
where I sort of struggle that, are you stopping pucks? And the Russian goalies, they appear unorthodox, but aren't.
Right. They have a system that they play.
Yeah. And I think they're doing a lot of what you talk about. When I'm watching, now that I've read the book and I'm thinking of how they've played, I see the head level related to the distance the puck is away. I just thought of that now.
Yeah, their head matches the crossbar, so they know that if that puck's coming at their teeth height, if it goes above their teeth height, they know it's missing the net.
Yeah.
But if you look at some video too, or even Carey Price as he moves, if he goes down in a butterfly or stands up and moves, his head is always the same height.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that, because you're marking the top of the net, so
Yeah.
you know what you're blocking and what you're covering.
Yeah.
So I've even gone so far as measuring, right? Like in the book there, you're going to see about midway through, wherever the puck is, there's a diagram of an ice hockey rink, and then there's shapes all over the ice. Well, if the puck was there, that's the shape of the net and the dimensions of the net.
Yeah.
So if you know that and you have an understanding of that, then you know what you're covering.
Yeah.
You know that puck has got a very high probability of hitting you regardless of what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Now you just have to get to the spaces you don't already cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, looking forward to tomorrow and another one later.
So yours, it's 8:30 Calgary time, 7:30 BC time.
Yes.
Perfect.
You okay with that?
We'll see you then.
All right. Take
All
care.
right, my brother. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.